Everyone, welcome to our fireside chat for the month of July. So I have today Tisha Lewis, and we're very excited that she's here. I've been working with Tisha as a business mentor for almost 2 years now. We met via a mentoring platform in 2021, towards the end of 2021, and sort of kicked off a relationship over time. And it's really good to have her on here. I feel like I really know her business very well, so I think we'll have a good conversation. But one of the key things we're hoping to achieve today is to really hear from someone who has just recently started a business, really looking at what are some of the difficulties she encountered, how she navigated them, what are some of the big lessons learned so far. I think what we'll be particularly focusing on are the learnings, because that's really where the magic happens. You know, there's a problem, you sort of face the problem, and there's always something to take out from that. So that's really what we'll be centering around, and just really looking at how she's pulled the idea together, what the inspiration behind the business is, and things like that. Now we're going to, as we make a start, Tisha, we'll sort of give you the floor to introduce yourself. And before we make a start, just to say that the William Factory Small Business Incubator is one of the sponsors for this fireside chat series that we host on a monthly basis. And the incubator is run by Tim Strege, who's on the call. He's the executive director of the incubator. This fireside chat is also part of the activities that we provide on the Founders Academy. The Founders Academy is a community within a bigger platform called the Founders and Mentors platform, which is owned and managed by 12 Ronnies. What we do on the Founders and Mentors is to provide support to early stage entrepreneurs, those at the pre-launch stages of their business. So those are the people we cater to. It's a free community to join. I'll grab the link as we get the conversation going, pop it into the chat for those that want any form of business support. Now, Tisha, I think it's over to you now. And what we want to start off with is really just going back. If we want to maybe go back 20 years ago and just tell us a bit about who the younger Tisha was, a bit about some of the strong influences in your early years. I think that would be helpful to put our conversation into context.
Sure. Well, I just want to say thank you, Winifred, for this opportunity to be on this platform. Also to everyone that has taken time out of their schedules to come over here. I'm in Marietta, Georgia, so it is afternoon over here where I am, but I want to thank you all for this opportunity. Well, let me see, 20 something years ago. I mean, it's definitely, I had a very strong influence from my parents, right? Both of my parents were entrepreneurs, right? And so, and then my dad also had a 9-to-5, if you will, kind of a job as well. But, you know, my dad, he would, he was very creative, would sell all kinds of things, including houses, and flip them and sell them and or rent them out to individuals in the community. I believe he had like a cab company, a taxi cab company that he would have my brothers and I, clean up and everything. And so he did a lot of just like, inventing and reinventing himself. And that's something that I absolutely appreciate. Toward the later years of his life, he opened up a nonprofit organization, which is actually still in existence in Washington, D.C., in the Northwest portion of Washington, D.C., called the Fishing School, which is a nonprofit organization that provides, after school support to children in the community. And so I was literally able to see him have an idea and take that idea, plant that idea, take that seed and plant it, and to see like the multiple trees that were planted that had grown in that sector. And I also worked there as well. So my mom, she has pretty much always worked for herself. My mom had background in as a seamstress and as a tailor. So she had her own tailor brick and mortar shop. And that was also in Washington, D.C. So she had that business and ran that business very successfully for 29 years until my father became ill. And then she retired. But then she still would have some of her customers come to the house. So, I mean, I was able to see that and also work there a few times, with her during my break when I was, coming home from school and sometimes after school. So definitely had that influence of my parents to see them deal with the business. Actually, my mom and my dad, they owned the building that my mom's business was in. And they had the tailor shop on the main level. It was a house actually, but it was a main level. And then upstairs was a rental property so they owned the building, but they had their rental property upstairs. And then they rented the bottom area to a tax accountant. So, seeing that entrepreneurial spirit, I have always wanted to dibble and dab into various businesses. And I actually have. I remember, if you don't mind me sharing, when we were really young and we probably in elementary school, I remember maybe the 4th or 5th grade, and we had a massive snowstorm in Washington. And so of course school was out, and it was kind of boring to be at home. And so my friend and we decided that we were going to go and shovel snow around the community, around the neighborhood. And we did that, and we collected some money. And so I started to think that, wow, what if we would have kept that going? We would have called it the snow girls or something of that sort. So it was just those those creative ideas and things that we had done, when we were younger, to not only make some money, but to go and out in the community to meet people. And then I also did start another business. I don't think Winifred knows about this, but it was a personal errand company. So I was working and living in an assisted living facility. I was like a overnight manager, and that was in Albany, New York, upstate New York. And so I would run errands for the seniors that were living there. And so I mean, I could have been like the first DoorDash, who knows, back then, if I would have kept it going. So, I just appreciate the fact that I had an idea, and went out and at least attempted to do something different to benefit someone else.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Tisha, for that very interesting, early years, sort of story. Now, as we go through, you've now started your business, but also we see that in your title, you also have a doctorate as well. So I don't know if you just want to, I know that, but people might be wondering, what exactly is it in, that kind of stuff. So if you want to, if you're comfortable chatting a bit about it, just so that people just appreciate it a bit.
Well, yeah, that would be really brief. Someone, I don't know if they're going to say, oh, what, did she get a PhD in puzzles? No, not in puzzles. I am an educator. Actually, this is like my second, well, probably third career. I was in communications, and then I'm now an educator and a researcher and a university professor. Associate professor. I'm a tenured professor in this area, and so it's very different, with puzzling, of course, but but yeah. So I received my PhD, and I do that on as my full time.
Okay, fantastic, which is great. So it's good that we've gotten that clear. Now, moving on, let's now focus on the business and really what is the main focus of our conversation, which is Perfect Piece Puzzles. Now, with Perfect Piece Puzzles, what you do is you take these really beautiful pictures and you convert them to puzzles, and you started sort of launch the business in 2022, and it's a year old. It was a year old in June last month. So do you just want to take us through the inspiration for Perfect Piece Puzzles? A lot of people might wonder why puzzles in the first place. There's so many other things that could have been done to why puzzles. So if you just want to give us a brief overview as to what inspired you to start the business, that would be great.
Absolutely. And thank you for that question. So yeah, I started Perfect Piece Puzzles, which is a jigsaw puzzle company. And we specialize in turning beautiful, bright, and colorful images or photographs into peaceful jigsaw puzzle pieces, right? And so I started the business really out of needing a healthy coping mechanism. So earlier on, I mentioned my parents, right? And so, and how much of an influence they were and are to me and the business, but to me also as an individual. And so, in 2019, both of my parents were placed in home hospice in Washington, D.C. And then a week before Thanksgiving, my mom transitioned. So she passed. And then 15 months later, my dad passed in 2021. And so, anyone who has lost someone, family member or a loved one that they just, these are my parents, right? So these are the first people in the world that I met. And so, I had major grief, of course, right? Major grief, anxiety, depression, just trauma. And so, I took a few leaves from my job because there was just no way that I could work under that pressure. So when my mom transitioned first, I'm here in Georgia. My dad was in Washington, D.C. And so I'm traveling back and forth, staying with him, and then until we could find full-time care for him. So just all of that. And then, my mom and I were best friends. And so when she transitioned, that just really threw me, for a loop. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I can't even explain the depth of grief, and so having to pretty much put my grief on the shelf and take care of my dad. I mean, that was just so incredibly hard. And then, no one ever mentions to you, like, after the parents have passed and me being the executor of their account or their estate, just all of the paperwork and dealing with selling the house and dealing with the correspondences between me and the lawyers, right? And dealing with that, it was just tremendously hard. I couldn't even begin to even discuss it. You know what I mean? Like, I can now discuss it. It hurts, but I can discuss it without really crying. I mean, I'm even feeling it right now. And that's just a human normalizing part of my humanity, right? And so having a leave of absence from my job, and my sleep habits were just out of kilter, as well as like my eating habits. I really needed a healthy coping mechanism, because there were so many other, things that I could have done that could have been really detrimental to my health, emotionally and mentally and physically. But I went ahead and purchased, because it was still the pandemic. And so I went ahead and purchased a 1,000 piece puzzle. And I'm going to be honest, like, putting these pieces together was literally like putting the pieces of my life together, like really trying to navigate what is my life now? Who am I? Am I still a daughter if my parents are not here? So dealing with identity issues, dealing with just the grief, of losing my parents. But I'm not going to say like puzzling like cured all of that. No, but it really helped me to sit still with my thoughts, with my feelings. And sometimes I would have music playing. Sometimes I would listen to a podcast. Sometimes I would have nothing playing in the background. And I would just put these pieces together. And, this doing puzzles as a mindfulness activity was what I needed. And I said to myself, like, if doing this for me, and I just experienced so much like heavy grief during that time and anxiety, that, there's something here, there's something that other people might need to experience as well. Here I am trying to like reimagine myself without my parents on this earth. And so working on puzzles was what I needed, to hit pause and unwind from my life sometimes. Sometimes it's just like, even now, like, okay, I'm a researcher, I'm an educator, I'm a professor at a university, and I just need to put that away, shut down all social media and my phone and the laptop. And I need to go into my dining room area, and I need to work on the puzzle that is there. And I can't tell you, like, just the relief. Like, I'm actually listening to my breathing when I'm puzzling. right? And so I knew that that was something that I needed to capitalize on. And so so moving forward, like I had taken all of these pictures of various landscape, locations that I had visited over the years, and I wasn't doing anything with them. And then I had this idea, that wait a minute, you know what? Maybe this is a good idea to to try to do this puzzle business, moving forward. And so I'm the artist behind every image or every photograph that you see on my website. Um, and I curated those images into 500 piece, jigsaw puzzle pieces, that are there. And so I have 8 um, units of products, currently on the website, right now.
Fantastic. A very, very touching story there. And I was quite very, because I know it, so I was very mindful I know it's a very, very sensitive conversation. So I was like, I hope it will not be too much for Tisha, but I think you handled it very well. So thank you for sharing that very, very touching story and just allowing yourself to be vulnerable as well. I think that's something people think, you always have to be on guard every time, you always have to be strong, but vulnerability is also a very, very important element of being human. And I think it's very important that people are aware that it's okay sometimes, to allow yourself feel what you want to feel what you're feeling at at that point in time, whether it's joy or happiness or anger or whatever it is, but really just taking time to feel it in the realest way possible. Now, you've sort of told us about the inspiration behind starting Perfect Piece Puzzle. It's something that resonated very well with you because it sort of helped you cope with this very, very significant loss. Now, in terms of now starting the business and actually getting it off the ground, let's think about the early stages, launching the business. Let's maybe look at the first 3 months of launching the business. What was it like? Was it what, in terms of expectation versus reality? What was it like for you?
Uh, I appreciate that question, Winifred. I did not know what to expect. I had done my research, and when I did find out that, it is a, multi-million dollar industry, right? People are buying puzzles and they're using it for whatever they need. I knew that there was something there, especially me being the first customer of Perfect Piece Puzzles, because it was for me. But I, I don't know. In the beginning, I don't really think I had a major expectation. I hoped that people, my potential customers, would see the quality and the meaningfulness and the significance, of the images, right? Because there's so many puzzles out there. You can get a puzzle at a Goodwill for $1 or so, right? um, but I wanted my customers to see that, these are images that I have taken in my travel, and I wanted them to see the locations, the imagery from my standpoint as a self-taught photographer, right? And so, in some cases, I was thinking, well, yeah, of course, people would, purchase, but in the beginning, it wasn't, it wasn't quite like that. Um, with this being like a bootstrapping business, right? I wasn't seeking any investors. Because I have a full-time job, that is also helping in my savings that I currently have, it's also helping to pay for the business and the expenses that I have. So um, I guess I will say that I had a really great month, like that first month in the business. And I think it was because I was launching, right? And so there were a lot of my friends, close friends, who, of course, knew what I had gone through, with the losses of my parents. And so, and many of them were very surprised that, oh my gosh, you took these pictures. Like, oh wow, so a lot of them purchased the puzzles in the beginning. So it was like, we going down this roller coaster, and everything was going like really, really well. And so when it came time to get more sales, I mean, the expectation was like, well, wait a minute, I had such a great, first month or two, what's going on, and just attempting to market the business, right? And then doing it all by yourself, right? There's still I say we because I am very intentional, the fact that that this is God's business. He is the owner, and that I am the CEO. I'm the chief experience officer, right? And so I'm so intentional about that, because I, just being able to mentally and emotionally and physically be sound mind and body, all came from God. So I give him all the glory for that. Because it was just incredibly rough, and still is rough not having your parents here. There's so many times I wish I could, of course, have them here, but also have them here as my mentors that they were, to say, hey, how did you, my mom, when she started her tailor shop, she told me she never had a business plan, and that was back in the maybe early 70s, I believe. So so she you know what I mean, and it was a very thriving business, and her customer base and her shop was kind of like a let me see, a salon or a barber shop. It had many different functions. It was where the community came, and I was just there to witness my mom, and sometimes when my dad was there, like the conversations about politics, about religion, or about whatever was going on in the news, or a book that people wanted other people to read. So it was such a beautiful, community. And I would say that, there was never a time that my mom's shop was like so empty that she wasn't getting customers. She was always getting customers. So maybe I thought that my expectations, getting back to your question, Winifred, was going to be like, oh, people are going to, come, but this was clearly for clothes, to get their clothes tailored. And, with her having that wonderful background as a seamstress, and mine is puzzling. So, my thing was to help, and is to help my customers to really see that, even if you used to puzzle as a youngster or as a child like myself, and even though you may, puzzle as an adult, like for them to see the benefit of puzzling. There's great benefit with cognition, to enhance your cognition, to increase or build your, your short and long-term memory, for to problem solve, to help with to release your stress, and definitely for me to help you cope with your grief and trauma, as well as to increase your self-care and relaxation. I mean, all of those were things that I did. So yeah, I had expectations, and especially like when I have sales, whether it's during a holiday season, I'm like, okay, now I have a sale, so I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of sales, right? And so in the first year, I would say I was starting to get a lot of sales like this now, as I am moving forward, it's really rough. It's really I would say a challenging opportunity. So right now, and with the roller coaster, I'm like chucking up, going slow, you know. So yeah, I'll stop right there.
I think that's a very, very helpful scenario there, because sometimes a lot of people get this perception that you start business today, it's going to just get off the ground. And I think what if there's anything I have learned in starting things, having an idea, trying to bring it to life, whether it be via events or projects or whatever it is, it's that most times, especially at the very early stages, it's not a constant. It's high lows, high lows, high lows, till you get to a place where you plateau and, you start getting the regulars and the people who would usually come or participate or buy your products or services frequently. But it's very, that I think I really appreciate your honesty there in, telling us that it's been a very difficult and challenging journey, especially because, like, the comparison between your mom's tailor shop and the puzzle, two different things. When you think about the clothes people it's a personal thing. People want to look good. They would make that extra effort. So something like a puzzle, I think it's more of like, if you have the interest, if you don't necessarily have the interest, it might not be something that you just go out and buy. It might be that people, maybe someone that likes it, or maybe you want to try it, or you're trying to build a new hobby and things like that. So it just means that to be able to break even in terms of sales, it does take a bit more time. And it's being patient. I think when you start things as a creative or as a business person, entrepreneur, whatever you want to class yourself as, it's that at the early stages, you have to be patient, and just know that, especially when you've looked at the kind of product or service that you're offering, you have to be patient with yourself, because it does take a bit of time. It's not usually as quick as we anticipate. So I'm just, grateful that you've highlighted that. So now, moving on to the business, as the business you've started the business, and you're growing it gradually. What are some of the techniques you've managed, or that you've used to manage maybe some of the disappointments you faced, or some of the, maybe things like it not going as quickly as you planned for it to go? What are some of your coping mechanisms in terms of dealing with the downsides of starting a business?
You mean outside of me puzzling myself, right?
Yeah, outside of you puzzling yourself.
Yes. So so I had to I do a lot of I would say, like, definitely that first year. I mean, I'm still like in the infancy stages, like just having celebrated my first year. But I would say like the first few months, I was always on Clubhouse. And I think Clubhouse is such a wonderful platform to go into various rooms that are of interest to you. And I was just very intentional about going into rooms that would really help me to assist with marketing my product. Just a lot of rooms, a lot of rooms in that regard. And I realized that one of the lessons I've learned is that yes, Tisha, you sell puzzles, but you are in the marketing business. Like that is it. You are in the marketing business because you have to have the skills and the know-how to market your business, because if no one is buying your products, then you really don't have a business, right? So I would definitely say that being on Clubhouse, oh my gosh, it was a major, a healthy coping mechanism for me, because I was just really intentional about the rooms that I was in. I would attend various webinars as well. I am part of the I think it's 1 million Black business owners from Operation Hope, which is a nonprofit organization here in the U.S. To really help Black entrepreneurs with financial literacy, entrepreneurship. It could be purchasing a home. So it's just a wonderful nonprofit. And so I'm a part of that program. So I also had some mentors there. And then oh my gosh, mentor makers, that's how I got in contact with Winifred, and that's how we met. And, I could say that this business relationship has turned into an amazing friendship as well. And Winifred has been so amazing to provide so much information, right, through her expertise, but also she has introduced me to A. Couture, who I know was a guest here, and of Fully Charged Snacks. And I'm telling you, I am a customer of hers. I purchase a lot of those snacks, and I know that you're going to give them away. So maybe if I'm able to get one, that's good too. But yeah, I mean, I realized that I was also, if I can be really honest and transparent, also when you're on Clubhouse or you're attending webinars and you're getting so much information that sometimes it could allow an individual to be to just have information overload, where you're not really you have everything that you need. You have the skill set, you have the expertise, you have the ideas, right? You have the feedback. And so now it's time to execute. And I know for me, that took me some time, because it was this, the trepidation of, okay, if I do this, what's going to happen? It's just me by myself. I don't want to, I didn't see it as failure, because I don't see that anything is a failure. I see it as a learning experience, right? I see it as everything that has happened in my life, is working for my good. I mean, if you think about it, I started a business, a jigsaw puzzle business, after losing my parents, right? And so this is the first time that I've actually had a thriving business. I talked about the personal errand service, but this is thriving, even though I'm on a roller coaster ride, right? But I wouldn't have maybe I wouldn't have started the jigsaw puzzle company if my parents haven't passed, who knows, right? And so I see how God has taken something that was so, it's just so hurtful, for me to lose my parents. And I'm still able to puzzle through the pain, and God was able to use that pain and that trauma and that anxiety, that depression to turn something around for not only just for me, but for others as well. Like so many of my close friends and distant friends have lost their parents this year. Like a lot of them are having the firsts, right? The first birthday, the first, Christmas, the first, whatever, the first their birthdays or their parents' birthdays or anniversaries of their transitioning. And so a lot of them have heard my story, right? And then that has caused them to want to purchase, but also to, to talk about their grief, because they may not have had the opportunity to go to a therapist like I have, or to a grief support group like I have, right? And so, I'm able to share with them in spaces where probably I may not have been able to help them. So I see that as such a well, I was going to say a wonderful benefit, even through the pain. It's kind of like an oxymoron, because how can death be wonderful? The only wonderful part about it is that for me as a practicing Christian is that I know where my parents are, like where their soul is living. And so that's the only peace that I have, knowing that one day I am guaranteed to see them again, right? Another coping mechanism that you had asked about, Winifred, is that I host puzzle parties at my house. So I've hosted two, one in February, and then another one in March during Women's History Month. And that was when I had a really big collaboration with two other Black-owned businesses, one being Fully Charged Snacks with A Couture. And so so they would come over, and I supply the location, my house, I supply the music, I supply the puzzles, of course, and I supply the food. And they just come, and we all just have such a great time. The last two that I've had, my friends, they didn't know each other. The only connection was me. And so they walked away knowing someone. They walked away working on a mindfulness activity, such as puzzling. And, we walked away talking about all kinds of amazing things that we had gone through in our lives, right? And so that has been just an amazing benefit, to have that collaboration, not only with businesses, but also with individuals, my friends.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just mindful of time. So I think another key question to ask would be in terms of the costing. So before we come to the costing, we'll come to the financing of the business. So you've mentioned that you have a full-time job, so you're able to use that to sort of finance the business, which means you've not had to sort of take any external finance so far. You've just been bootstrapping, which is what we'll usually advise. But, it might be that other founders don't necessarily have, they're not professors, might not be earning as much as professors do, and things like that. What would you advise other early stage entrepreneurs in terms of funding their businesses? What would you tell them to do? Is there any advice or any comments you have here? And then I'll take a question. Tim has a question for you as well. So I'll take Tim's question. So
yeah, I mean, I think that in the beginning now, sometimes you can have a product for instance, and but the product may not be ready, right? And so instead of meaning that you don't have the product in hand, and so when the product is not in hand and you may have a website and you may want to go off of pre-orders, right? So that you're not purchasing a lot of inventory and and have your customers pre-order so that okay, I'm going to need 20 of this particular design, and maybe 25, and maybe 50, and maybe 11 over here, so that even though you may not even have it in hand, your customers don't need to know that. They just need to know, okay, where can I pre-order? How can I pay? And so that is kind of what happened in the beginning with me, unbeknownst to me, because in the very beginning, I had issues with puzzle manufacturing, right? And so as I was getting the puzzles ready, there were some issues, and that stopped the production. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to launch. And it was so meaningful to me because my launch date is my mom's birthday, June the 29th of 2022. So I had a lot of people pre-order, and there was just feeling that I was having of like, oh my gosh, like this is not how I wanted to start this business like this. And I just felt like getting the puzzles ready was taking so long, like really having to find a puzzle manufacturer really quickly, because the previous manufacturer that I had, there was a major issues with the printer and the ink, and they weren't able to get the colors and the ways that I wanted them to, so that it would make, you would see the picture or the image on my website as you see the actual photograph. But I didn't want it to, if there's a blue, there's a puzzle that I have that's called Blue Palm Sky. So if it's a blue palm sky and it's of a pretty blue sky, the sky can't be like green. And so we were having some issues with that. And that was like right in the beginning of the launch. So I would definitely say to do pre-orders, even before you even have your product, but working diligently and having integrity to make sure that you're working hard to get that manufacturer so that your customers won't have to wait a long time.
okay.
The other thing too, I haven't needed to do this, but sometimes it could just be some family and friends to help to invest.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them may do it without the any equity or anything. But I would say that another thing people can do is that they can sell things around their house. I mean, consignment shops. We have consignment shops where you can just drop off some newly minted, conditioned clothes and or furniture or anything around the house that you don't want or need anymore, and then you can get money from it. So just whatever that is creative, whatever that is, of course, legal, whatever that is safe to do, so that you can continue with the having the monies that you need, especially if you whether you have a full-time or a part-time job or no job. I would definitely say, like, being an entrepreneur, I mean, you have to be creative. Like, that is like one of the characteristics, I would say.
Okay.
and to make something out of nothing in most cases.
Okay, thank you. I think I agree with all those. Simon, who's one of the co-founders of 12 Ronnies, he and some other co-founders are launching Crowdmall. So Crowdmall is like a platform where you have a product, you're an early stage entrepreneur, you list it for pre-orders. So you know, as soon as you said pre-orders, I was going to mention Crowdmall being like an sort of an Amazon kind of platform, but for pre-orders, for early stage entrepreneurs. So it's great that you mentioned that and all the other things that you mentioned. But before we carry on, and I'm just conscious of time, we usually give out $4 to $6 worth of fully charged allergy-friendly snacks to those in the States, because it cannot be posted out of the state. So that's usually, where the challenge is. But, so if you're based in the States, if you are in the US and you're joining us on the call, it would be great if you could put your name in the chat. So if you're based in the USA, if you could put your name in the chat so that we have a separate spinner for you to give that away. Right now, I only know of Tisha and Tim. Tim is the one sponsoring, so we cannot include Tim in the spinner. I only know of Tisha. So if Tisha is the only American on the call, then Tisha, you automatically win it.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other American on the call, so I don't think there'll be any need to do a spinner for that. But before we go, we'll go over to R.E.A.L is going to do the spinner now. What we're giving out this time, we're also giving out one of the puzzles that Tisha, one of which is Tisha's products. So we're going to be giving out one of them. So if you're based in the state or wherever you're based, we can always send that to you. It's not a food product. So hopefully we'll see how that goes. So R.E.A.L, over to you. Yes, so Deborah, if you could please pop your email in the chat and I will be in touch. Deborah, you've won the first Amazon voucher. So, R.E.A.L, what did you just spin for? I don't think you've told us what order you're going in. So if you just want to type in the chat and tell us what order you've gone in.
Hi. So the first one is the Amazon vouchers.
Okay, fantastic. So one Amazon voucher gone. Thank you. So
Zara.
Zara, please pop your email in the chat.
And this is for the puzzle.
Franklin, so you win the puzzle. If you could please email me. So for the puzzle, I'll certainly need an address to send it over. So if you could please send me an email with your name, your email address, and an address where I can send it to, that'll be great. I'll just pop my email in the chat. Just bear with me. So please email me. So Deborah, Zara, and Franklin. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Tisha, I'm going to read a question to you. And this is just so that you give us some closing remarks before you go. But Tim is asking here in terms of he received one of your puzzles, the Partway Forward. And, it's a photo perfect photo perfect scene of a trail with mountains in the background. What considerations do you have for expansion, such as in airports, bookstores, libraries, recreation center, and other places people set aside time for waiting, reflection, and mindful recreation? So again, just if you could just summarize that, and then we'll round up on the call today.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I didn't think about Tim airports, right? But that would be great, right? To have them at convenience stores and airports. I know one of my 5-year goals is to really get involved with government contracting so that my puzzles are in every, Vietnam vet home, hospital, nursing home, assisted living home, um, adoption centers, and or even prisons, right? So I definitely want to expand in that regard. Definitely, I would love for Perfect Peace Puzzles to be a part of conference swag bags, small and or large events to when they're having conferences, that it would be like a gift for them. Definitely, I would love to expand in bi-monthly and maybe annual subscription services to customers. And this is something that I'm really, really interested in, is to have like communal workspaces for corporate businesses as well as universities, for me, working at a university and for students, some of my students and faculty, sometimes they need a break. And a lot of them may be, part of the disability services. And it would, if you can just imagine having that kind of a workspace where there's a puzzle, stop what you're doing, shut down your technology and go into this room and, hit pause and unwind and work on your puzzles. That's something that I'm really interested in, especially because a lot of my friends are teachers who teach in the K through 12 sector. And so teaching at this point is really hard. It was extremely hard during the pandemic and then even post-pandemic. And so I would love to see Perfect Peace Puzzles in those kind of communal workspaces, as well as for, seniors and those other locations that I mentioned earlier.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tisha. I know how busy you must be. So we're really grateful that you took out some time to share your story, your journey throughout starting Perfect Peace Puzzles to where you are today. And it's a very relatable story, very practical advice that you've given on. So we're very happy to have learned from your journey so far, and also to know about what has inspired the business. Sometimes that story is enough for someone to buy a puzzle. So I think it was good that you shared that and allowed yourself be vulnerable with the emotions that come with that kind of story. So thanks again for that. We've now given out our giveaways for this month. Tisha has won the $46. Again, that's because it was uncontested anyways. The 2 Amazon vouchers have gone to Zara and Deborah, and they've put their emails in the chat. The other puzzle has gone to Franklin. Franklin, I'm yet to hear from you. I'll sort of dig up your email if you've registered and reach out to you. But that's us with the fireside chat for the month of July. There'll be another one in August. Every month we do these things, so be sure to look out. I've not really been a very good marketer as I used to be in the past. Things have been very busy, but hopefully I'll have more times on my hand and be able to give more time to market in the fireside chats. But thank you to everyone that managed to come. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. So bye, everyone. Bye, Tisha.
Bye-bye. Thank you so very much.
Welcome. Bye. Bye.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.